this. But what I've seen, and I connected also with my past experiences, that you can develop wonderful strategies, but most strategies simply fail in the implementation, simply fail by not translating this into the day-to-day life of employees.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is Wednesday again, your favorite time of the week. As always, my favorite time of the week. It's time for Leaders Talk. As usual, I am your intrepid host, Andrew Dupy. And with me today is Hans Lagerweij. And Hans is the founder of Flying Dutchman Consultancy. He is, to our interest, a budding author. He's going to tell you about that here in just a second. And actually, I'm going to let Hans just have the floor here for a moment and introduce himself. And yeah, Hans, welcome to the show. Sorry for the brief introduction. As you know, the audience doesn't know, I'm suffering from a little bit of an issue with my throat this morning, but so we'll be a little truncated on a couple of things. But hey, the show must go on, as they say in Hollywood. So welcome, sir. And just let our audience know a little bit about you.
Yes, thank you, Andrew, and congratulations with pronouncing my name so well. I,
If I hadn't done it 10 seconds before we began here, it probably wouldn't have been able to do it.
I know it's a difficult name. It's a Dutch name, so I'm originally from the Netherlands. And to summarize my career, I worked 10 years in packaged consumer goods and marketing and sales roles, and then 15 years in hospitality in executive roles, and have turned businesses around, have grown businesses spectacularly, have
Okay.
launched businesses internationally, sold products in more than 50 countries, and also managed to get market leadership, for example, in China twice. So that's a bit my background. And in the last 3 years, I have my own consultancy company, Flying Dutchman Consultancy, which was,
Right.
first really focused on commercial and strategic consultancy. Indeed, how do I
Okay.
grow? Where do I grow? How do I expand internationally? Questions like this. But what I've seen, and I connected also with my past experiences, that you can develop wonderful strategies, but most strategies simply fail in the implementation, simply fail by not translating this into the day-to-day life of employees. So that is, yeah, the start idea of my book. And between us, my book actually started off as a blog post about what is now chapter 6. I call it the reverse elevator pitch or reverse elevator speech. And this concept is, everyone probably knows the elevator pitch, that if you're in the elevator with the CEO or her executive team, sell off your idea in 2 to 3 minutes, have a trigger, present it, and present why this is different, and what's needed next.
Mm.
So my concept of reverse elevator pitch is actually, no, as a leader, as an executive leader, you have to apply this same method the other way around. You
Right.
cannot present to your team a 60-page PowerPoint with a lot of analytical, deep going data. You have to be able to present and to share and to excite your team in 2 to 3 minutes. So that's how the book started, just a blog post about that particular topic. And then when I dig deeper, it is really a much bigger issue than I thought. And just facts that I found, Andrew, from research companies, so it's not from me, that only 20% of the global workers are engaged at work. So
Oh, yeah.
that's dramatic. Almost 50% of the organizations fail to meet at least half of their strategic targets. So that's also quite a shocking fact. This one, I'm really shocked by that. I didn't know it was that bad. 95% of the employees are unaware or do not understand their company strategy.
Yeah.
So these are shocking facts, and that's why I thought, it's time to write a very practical book about strategy, but not just strategy, but how do I implement a strategy? How do I implement my vision? How do I implement the purpose of the organization? We all know the wonderful book, The Why of from Simon Sinek. It's his why concept.
Yeah.
But how do I implement it? And that's what my book is about.
And that's kind of important. You bring up several topics that I kind of want to dive into as we go into this. How much of this do you feel like is a lack of just general communication skills that are occurring within a business, that they either don't have a proper strategy, or they're not communicating a strategy down to the different ranks so they can actually begin to implement the strategy?
Yes, it is partly communication. I think not partly. Communication is probably the biggest part, and you will find
Right.
that back in my book. So chapter 5 is all about how to communicate a strategy. Chapter 6 is then the little outliner with the reverse elevator pitch, which is also communication. But I highlight that there's other opportunities as well. So I developed the 6C model. Next to clear communications, it also has consistent reinforcement. So you have to repeat your plan and your vision in in as many things as you do in the company. So this is not a one-off thing, but needs to come back in the regular team meetings, in performance reviews, in targets, etc.
Yeah.
And that's also aligned with cultural alignment. So the whole performance management system needs to support your strategy. The values in the organization needs to support your strategy. I make a little step about collaboration. Of course, it should be a team effort. And I also talk in the book about how do you involve your team with your strategy? Because if you are a CEO of, 20,000 people, you cannot say, okay, 20,000 employees, let's build together a strategic plan. But there's still, I make some suggestions in the book, things that you can do to involve people in the plan.
Yeah.
I talk about the C, celebrate successes. So celebrate little steps, little achievements, and have fun. Fun is essential. As I say, fun strategy gets done, dull strategy gathers dust.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that I think we discussed a little bit before this meeting. Is we talked about the fact that businesses aren't making strategy fun, and businesses aren't. I think they're thinking of strategy as something that's very dry, and not
Yeah.
necessarily something that they should be putting on their very front burner, when strategy is everything. Strategy is where you're going. It's what's going to get you where you need to be. It's what got you where you are. So why do you think that businesses aren't looking at strategy as what I would think is kind of the most interesting part of being in business?
Yeah, that's such a good point, Andrew, because when I started writing the book, and people asked me like, "Oh, what's your book about?" And I said, "Oh, it's about strategy implementation." People looked at me like, "Oh, no, boring." I mean, you could see it in their eyes. Or also, but in a nice way, some reaction was like, "Oh, that sounds quite theoretical." Well, no, strategy should not be just theoretical.
Right.
As you say, it's the ultimate game plan, and the ultimate game plan where you could win, and winning should be accelerating for the full team. So why is this not happening? I make a couple of suggestions, but one example is that there's leaders who think that strategic plans is something of an executive team exercise. And even then the employees regard it like that. Okay, let them do the strategy, I do
Yeah.
my daily work. um, there's indeed also this observation, and I've seen it myself one time as a very junior employee when I started my career. I had a wonderful general manager, and he wanted to involve his team. So he thought it was good to present his 70 slide deck that he just presented and got approval from the from the head office. So 60 pages of PowerPoints, and he presented to the full team. He lost us after slide number 3. So yeah, it is also understanding that you need to be able to summarize and inspirationally share your plan, and you don't have to do the complete analytics. You could still say to people who like to go into data and statistics, and okay, here you can find and study, you know, the data behind the plan. But yeah, you know, PowerPoint is sometimes what's killing strategies. It's just too much, too detailed, too much data, too much theory, and yeah, not enough inspiration.
Yeah. And that kind of again gets back to the point, you know, how are we going to educate people in business better ways to either implement strategy or better ways to involve the entire business in the process of creating a successful and useful strategy for a business?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I make a lot of suggestions, and unfortunately
Right.
also now with you know, online methods, even AI, you know, it's very easy to get feedback and insights from your organization. And what I also give an example, you know, your strategic plan doesn't necessarily have to go immediately from day one into all the details. If, for example, one of the key aspects will be cost savings, because you know
Mm.
your profit is under pressure, it doesn't look too good. Cost savings, cost savings. People, if you put that word out, people are scared. Like, oh, cost savings, that could mean, you know, cut jobs, cut salary freezes, blah blah blah. You could also treat it positively and involve every member of the team to generate ideas for cost savings, as I have done one time. You know, centrally logged, a long list of ideas, and you would be surprised how many easy and also creative ideas for cost savings come back to you. And you know, then when you need to implement them, it will be much easier because your employees have been involved in it, and they understand, if you explained it well, why they have to look for cost savings. So that you have involved them in the generation of the ideas is already a big win in for the implementation phase.
Right. And yeah, I think that also speaks to something that one of the things you mentioned when you talk about cost savings, when you start talking about like when the word starts to hit the street in a business that there's new consultants coming in, there's new strategies being implemented. I've been in a business where that's happened, and not being in the executive branch of it. And many of the employees then begin to talk about, "Ooh, what's that mean for me?" You know, it's more. There's a little bit of the buzz of, "Does this mean layoffs? Does this mean uh, promotions? Does this mean demotions?" It starts to actually kind of create a percolation of almost fear in a workplace. So, do you feel like being able to begin with engaging your employees a lot more in this will start to reduce that and maybe increase the feeling of job security inside of a business?
Yes, and one of the paragraphs, I also write about the topic of confidentiality. So I had this question coming to me like, Hans, I cannot share my strategic plan with my employees because then it might end up with the
Yeah,
competition. And I said, yeah, there's always a risk for that, but the risk of your team not understanding where you want to go and what's expected of them, that risk is far bigger than your competitor finding out what you're doing, because you know, if you take the right steps in the market, your competitor will quickly learn what your plans are
right.
from
Yeah,
just
it'll be very, very quick. Yeah.
and I also, I mean, I'm a practical person in that sense. I make a comment that, you know, in certain situations, yes, you cannot share details with your team. I mean, if you're in discussions of an acquisition, or if the decision has already been made that we need to cut a significant amount of jobs. Of course, that's not something that you can share with your team in an early stage. But for the rest, I would really recommend involve your team, share where the business is, share where you want to go, share why that's important, also share what's expected from them, and then have these regular updates, weekly, bi-weekly, so that everyone knows, yeah, where we are on track, and where we as a team we have to win a bit.
Yeah. And that's, I think also that point that you made, competitors, how much should you really worry about your competitors when you're building your own strategy? I know that in the case of our business, yeah, we look at our competitors, but you're right, we'd already seen what they had been doing. So we knew what had been successful for them, and we knew what hadn't been successful for them. If we'd had previews that had come in about what they were going to do in the future, I don't think that would have ever really made any difference in what our strategy was going to be going forward. So, how much do you feel like a business leader should be thinking about their competitor strategy when crafting their own?
Yeah, I mean, you should know, of course, where your competitor is, and what kind of customers they are successful with, which
Right.
customer segment they target. But for the rest, you know, you need to be different, and you need to be always 2 steps ahead. When I talked about the 6 C's, I actually, funny, Andrew, I talked about 5 C's. What is the 6th C from my book? The 6th C is continuous improvement. And that's a strategy that I've seen very well working with the team, if they understand it, that, when we're not implementing immediately one big plan for the next 2 years. No, we have um, a clear vision, and our plan is cut in chunks, and we implement, we learn, we optimize, and we go one step further. And one advantage that I see if you implement continuous improvement with your organization, well, first of all, you create a learning organization. You learn much faster than if you do, yeah, have a more traditional view on strategy implementation. But the second thing is, if you do it well, you always 1 or 2 steps ahead versus your competition.
Right. Yeah, and that's, back to the whole idea of we should probably be looking at strategy as something that is exciting. Because I think that everything you talked about is kind of the interesting part of doing business. I think the more people are involved in it, the better it is for a business to have everybody have their own part in something. So how do we make it, I mean, for lack of a better word, just more fun
Yeah,
for the executives and for everybody else? Yeah.
yeah, you make it more fun by first of all celebrating successes, and celebrating successes is not something that you do 1 year in an award ceremony. Yeah, maybe you do
Yeah.
that as well, but that can be also bringing in a cake for this week, because this week you booked some record sales targets, or the other week you organize a little reception because some new marketing milestones were met. So celebrating successes is one of the key elements. But what I also suggest is that you could integrate your strategic plan with a lot of the more social and fun activities
Yeah.
in the company. And I give one example in the book, which is actually it was a very challenging situation. It was with a company that was losing money, that had to be turned around. And so funny, this idea didn't came from me, but someone suggested, so our vision for in the short term is to be back in black,
Yeah.
back in black numbers, not red numbers. Red numbers are negative, and I love that. So next to a strategic plan, suddenly a theme was born, back in black. And that was explained to the team. our team meetings started off with ACDC. And yeah, when we got back in the black numbers, we had a back in black party.
Yeah.
So, and this is just a very playful way of integrating fun aspects, social aspects with your strategy.
Yeah. I see that as something that can be very effective. I mean, the more that you engage your people, the more that they think that there's going to be targets and fun, the more that they're going to strive for them and get the rewards that come from it.
Yeah,
Um, so,
I would say, an inspirational strategy is the same as unstoppable momentum.
but dig into that just a little bit more for me.
Yeah, and that's also going back to what I just said about continuous improvement. So if your strategy, if your plan inspires, if your team is engaged with it, um, you would be surprised as a leader, but then your team is often, driving the execution because they know what needs to happen. They are thrilled about it. They want to make it happen, and they make it happen. Which actually, that's what I call unstoppable moment. That's interesting situation for a leader because, of course, you have to set the example. But if your team is executing your plan like an unbelievable engine, that means that you can spend more time to ask yourself the question, okay, what's next? What's after this? What if we are back in the black numbers? If we are back in a profitable company, what's then the next phase of this company?
So we're kind of wrapping things up a little bit here. I know there's a lot of topics that we can cover. Fortunately, we have a book
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
that we can immediately go to and get the answers. But before I give you a chance to kind of talk about that and where our audience can get it, is there any kind of just like a golden nugget, something we haven't touched on, something that you feel like the audience can, business executives in the audience they can listen to, or even non-business executives can take and possibly implement and use to improve strategy in their business or just improve in general how their business works and flows?
Well, yeah, for me, the golden nugget is in the end, it is the communication, it is the sharing.
Gotcha.
So that's why, although it is now a book with 8 chapters, chapter 6 was originally, the core idea. Be able to share your vision, your plan in 2 to 3 minutes. And that includes giving an understanding of what's expected from your team.
Yeah.
What's their role in it, and why is it inspiring? Why is it interesting?
Right. And I mean, there you go. That's something I think everybody can take away from this. Hans, how can people get your book? When's it going to be out? And how can our audience find out a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so the book's title, we didn't talk about it actually, is The Why Whisperer. How to with the secondary title, How to Motivate and Align Teams That Get Your Strategy Done. It's available on all the major bookstores, online bookstores, and you can also find more information on my website. Unfortunately, in order to come to my website, you have to know how to spell my very difficult name, which is
We'll
uh,
link that down below.
okay. Yeah. It's www.hanslagerwij.com.
Excellent. Yeah, we will link that down below. And apologies for not mentioning the name of the book. I tell you, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You watched my show for like 2 years. You know when I'm not 100% on my game. So Hollywood is right. The show must go on. Well, Hans, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for for dealing with me being a little under the weather.
No
Uh,
problem at all. It was great.
yeah,
Thank you, Andrew.
I appreciate it so much. We wish you the best of luck. And yeah, those links are down below, ladies and gentlemen. Grab those books. Grab The Why Whisperer and give it a good read.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks.
Andrew.